Well, you're going to wish you saw this sooner. As devastating as the election results were for the Democratic Party, there's nothing like going back to listen to the smug condescension that we saw from leftist figures like Destiny. It is music to my ears, and that's why this clip from earlier this year is coming back to haunt him when Benny Johnson ripped him to shreds in this explosive debate. Just take a look for yourself before we dive in.
I particularly take quite a bit of umbrage with the description of Donald Trump as demonic. I think that is quite shocking as a Christian myself to call somebody demonic like Donald Trump, who's actually against the 10 million people who have been human smuggled into this country, many of them children. I remember a time not too long ago when people the left cared about children in cages. Yet now they're calling Donald Trump demonic. He wants to stop these human smuggling by the cartels. Have you ever been down to the border, Destiny? Have you seen the trees? Have you seen the little children's toys that are left down there from the human smuggling that is created by Joe Biden, the biggest human smuggler in human history? Do you know the carnage and the horror that is being created by those policies? Let's not even talk about what Joe Biden has done to the world stage. Donald Trump brought world peace. You're going to talk about Kurds and wars? How about Ukraine? Joe Biden could have stopped that war before it even started. Joe Biden continues that war and continues the funding of that war that is leading to the wholesale slaughter of an entire region. Joe Biden could stop it right now. Joe Biden has brought war around the world.
That was absolutely nuclear. And by the way, shout out to my fellow libertarian Dave Smith for being a part of this. And honestly, I've never seen Destiny be quiet and just take such a beatdown for so long. Now, there's a reason for that. From streaming video games in his room full time to becoming an armchair political pundit, you see a stark disconnect with the reality in him that's just frustrating for someone on the outside like Benny Johnson. By the way, we're having some important conversations of our time, so make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell because I'd love you to be part of the circle. Now, I think there's a reason why any discussion panel that has Destiny on it dissolves like this, and it's because the last few years the rhetoric has been increasingly rabid and radical to the point that he can't even bring himself to condemn political violence against innocent people. Notably, a tweet that got him suspended from Kick read, quote, "I'm sure Corey and Babbitt are having fun with each other in heck right now," but that's not just an outrageously offensive statement, but it almost plays on religious language that Destiny's doing more of recently, calling Donald Trump a demon on this very panel. When that happens, I think the reaction of someone like Benny Johnson, who is a Christian himself, is at least understandable, because Destiny is an ardent atheist.
And the final thing I'll say here, how dare you call Donald Trump demonic when Joe Biden hasn't even said Laken Riley's name correctly, called her Lincoln Riley when he was forced to. This woman was slaughtered by a criminal alien who was in this country illegally, who was released by Democrats and went on to slaughter a nursing student in Georgia with his bare hands. And Joe Biden apologized to the murderer. How dare you say that Donald Trump's demonic? Can you defend any of that behavior? Final thing I'll say here is Joe Biden wouldn't acknowledge his own grandchild. Even the New York Times said that is a sick, evil behavior. So if you're looking for demonic behavior, my friend, I got it for you. It's sitting in the White House in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in a diaper right now during nap time.
That was so cathartic, but here's what's interesting. You may see Destiny oddly quiet on this panel, but he's apparently very brave in calling out Benny by name and leveling all kinds of accusations on X. Here's what he's been writing over the past few months that could very easily land him in legal trouble if Benny Johnson did take these allegations as being a paid Russian propagandist to court. He wrote, and let me quote this like Destiny would say it, "Hi, Benny Johnson. I'm suggesting otherwise you knowingly spread disinformation and BS on the internet, aligning with Russian interests, and you absolutely should have effing known better if you were getting paid massive amounts of money to do it. Your lawyers can even email me." He wrote in another, quote, "If you ever want to know what propaganda the Kremlin is working on, check out what Benny Johnson is tweeting." Sorry, I don't know if I lisped enough. I'm just having fun. In other words, he's the kind of person who's very loud when he's behind a computer screen, and it is very laughable when you hear him talk about meanness in American politics in the context of what he's said online.
I don't think I would say that Obama is an angel, but I mean, there's a separate discussion between besides the character of a person and the actual policy positions or things they did in office. I think Trump would lose on both counts, but I mean, separate from policy or, effectuality or ineffectuality as a leader, I think that it's pretty undeniable that Trump is kind of a mean-spirited guy. And then when you look at how he runs his campaign, when you look at how he runs the country, he's a very self-driven person. Like every single thing that he does is just ultimately to serve his needs or his ends at the end of the day. Whether that means throwing political opponents under the bus, whether that means throwing political allies under the bus, whether that means not helping, Georgia's Senate elections because he's so angry that Raffensperger, wouldn't turn over enough votes for him, and now Georgia has 2 blue senators. Like, I don't know. Just Trump is a really mean dude. And again, yeah, you can switch over and you can look at the foreign policy position too. But I mean, you can talk about Obama's follies, but Trump also abandoned our Kurdish allies in Syria to Turkey. Trump also, inflamed tensions in the Middle East when he recognized, the Jerusalem, moving the embassy over to Jerusalem and the United States' recognition of Israel annexing East Jerusalem and everything. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think Trump wins on any count where he would come off as a nice guy.
So what, Destiny? Why is he looking for politics to be all nice and cozy? Someone being mean isn't a deal breaker when you're looking for someone to lead the country. And would you rather have a robotic and rehearsed political talking head like Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, or Tim Walz? I think it was Cenk Uygur that remarked how one of Trump's greatest strengths is the appearance of authenticity, even though he tends to say whatever is on his mind and often gets in trouble for it. But in a political arena so starved of authenticity, the voters aren't looking for someone that's all nice and smiles, especially not when the problems they need to solve are so grave and global. And while we're on the subject, what moral high ground does Destiny have when he's one of the greatest contributors to the toxicity of this political culture? He was questioned and given a chance to take back what he said about Corey Compertor in this conversation with Alex O'Connor, and surprisingly, he just doubled down on his violent rhetoric.
No, I don't think the dialogue is being poisoned because people are being mean, of which conservatives have been disgusting for years, which is why I don't give a fuck about anybody that winds up at any of these rallies and gets shot or whatever the okay, because they had no problem making fun of Paul Pelosi. They have no problem making fun of anybody else that gets killed in some horrific event. A lot of conservatives were laughing along at a lot of my tweets when I was making fun of Palestinians during my last, year and a half talking about Israel. And some of them laughed when I made fun of Israelis as well. But all of a sudden, Corey is beyond reproach. I think that the issue that I have with X isn't people being mean. It's people that are just lying and contributing to a destruction of the discourse. I think that people can be mean. I think hate speech is fine, whatever you want to do there. But when you have people that are intentionally bad actors that are just destroying the discourse by just flooding it with incorrect stuff that they're not even trying to be correct about, the entire world would be better off if these people were permanently removed from these platforms. Like, there is no downside and only upside to see people like Candace Owens, Tucker Carlson, Tim Pool never be allowed to publicly broadcast their opinions ever again. It's exclusively bad stuff that happens.
And by the way, let me just say again, my condolences to Corey. He was an American hero, and I am so thankful for him giving his life for what he believed in. And now I've got to ask, how do you even take this guy seriously anymore? Well, most people don't, because he betrays the liberal and progressive values that he claims to stand by, and he's done more damage to himself in the past year than anyone else that he's launched a tirade against. But Destiny's almost a placeholder for a certain kind of far left that even a large segment of the Democrat base despises. He's a bad look for them, and he's almost gone full circle to fundamentally illiberal values in his hatred for the other side. Even if he's taken out of the picture, someone else will come and take Destiny's place on the far left as a mirror image of the far right, and that's why it's all the more important to identify and distance these people from the ambit of civil debate. This panel discussion you watched is certainly one example of why that needs to happen. But let me know in the comments if you agree, because we're entering a political era with Donald Trump where people like Destiny are likely going to have a lot more subject matter to talk about, and for people in the moderate center to push back against him for.